Hi, I'm Renée Walker, a mindset mentor, speaker, and lover of all things spiritual. I believe that at our core, we are all spiritually wired for love, peace, success, and abundance. Here on the podcast, we're diving into mindset, wellness, and business, but always through a spiritual lens. Let's just say we're going deep, but we're keeping it light. So let's elevate your life from the inside out, one conversation at a time. Welcome to Spiritually Wired. Welcome back to Spiritually Wired. Today, I have Portia Chambers joining us for this episode. Portia is the founder of the We Experience, which is dedicated to helping women feel seen, heard, loved, and supported through intimate events and the storytelling podcast called This Is We. Portia is a true multi-passionate at heart, and I was so inspired by our conversation. She reminds us of the power of unplugging from social media to invite more presence, the importance of creativity in your life, and she shares moments of making difficult decisions in order to live in alignment with her values. I absolutely love this conversation, so if you've been feeling the pull to slow down, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Portia, I remember like the first time that I saw you was through the We Experience. And so for people who are not aware of what the We Experience is, can you sort of tell us a little bit more about where you sort of felt that idea, where the idea came from? What was that like guiding you towards creating the We Experience?
Well, it all really came from loneliness. I was feeling really, really lonely. I was at I want to say like a crossroads in my life. I was kind of slowly ending my social media agency and was kind of looking for something else to fill the void of being lonely. This was kind of near the trail end of COVID, more or less. I think it was like 2021. And I was burnt out. I had adrenal fatigue. I felt very disconnected to who I was. And I was just searching for something that kind of brought me back to myself and brought me back to my community, being able to talk to other women and really kind of putting something on for people. I've always been kind of like a hostess at heart. Like my poor daughter's birthday parties were always kind of elaborate in a way because I love to use my creativity in that way. So I just wanted another avenue to kind of use my creativity, use the skills that I've learned over so many years and create something for somebody else. And for me just to kind of be in the background. And so, yeah, it kind of started with loneliness. I found the We Experience through meditation, oddly enough, where it kind of all just downloaded to me and became what it is. And I kind of just jumped into that. So if anybody's unfamiliar with the We Experience, we are, like Renee had said, we are, a platform for the everyday women. You don't have to be a business owner. You could be a stay-at-home mom, a sister aunt. You could have a corporate job. You could be in between jobs. It's really for a place for you to land and just be who you are in that very moment. We're not looking for who you were or who you want to become. We want to know who you are now. And really the experiences that shaped you to be the person you are today. We are all about, scrapping the surface level conversation and diving into the deep stuff. And all of our events, whether it be a dinner or more of our larger events, like our We Gather or our summit, it's all kind of harnessed and has the intention of connecting with people. And we like to kind of keep everything relatively intimate so you don't feel intimidated walking into the room. You feel as if you can connect with, 60, 70% of the women there. Because we've all been to an event with 100 plus people where you just are kind of like a little shell shocked in a way where you kind of walk into the room and you're like, ooh, I think I'm just going to hang out with the 3 people I arrived with. And then I kind of feel a little intimidated. And here at the We Experience, we really try to kind of harness that safety in a way for you to feel safe to kind of roam around the room. And I feel like for myself outside of the We Experience, I've done so many things. So I feel that I attract so many different kinds of women. we have women that, that I've done a lot of things in my life. And so, I have a yoga background. So I attract a lot of women who are very mindful, who love to be in nature, who love, eco-friendly things, very conscious in a way. And then I also, had a social media business. So I attracted a lot of powerhouse women that are looking to build their network, who are looking to, showcase their business. And then there's lots of women in between who are really just looking for a new friend at the end of the day. They don't really have all of these other things, that are really just looking to connect. And we really try to, my last point, shall I say, is to kind of step outside or encourage the women that show up at our events and at our dinners to kind of step aside of the titles that they put on themselves and to really get to know themselves. So often at almost I wouldn't say every event, we are like a no cell phone free space. Like you're not allowed to be on your cell phone, which is hard. I always say like, take your photos now and then put your phone away. I being a social media person, I know the importance of content, but I also know the importance of being present. And I think to me that always trumps content any other day is just to be present. And we always take, business off the table. So these are things that we don't talk about. We don't talk about our business and we don't talk about the other titles. So whether being a mother, whether being a mother to a child or a pet, like a pet, whatever it may be, we're here to talk about you, not about the things that we hold on to fill conversation or to fill the void of silence. I would much rather you just kind of sit in silence and be a little uncomfortable with it than try to fill it with just, surface level conversation.
Okay. Wow. That is exactly the type of event that I want to come to. And I'm going to come to one of yours as soon as we can make it happen. So for people who are wondering where they are, they're in, what area?
So I want to say the Toronto-ish area. I'm a huge believer in community. And so I feel I'm 45, 50 minutes, 60 minutes north of the city. So I live in a very small town and, our community is tight. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the facilities here for me to run the events that I would love to run here. So some of our events are in the Newmarket area. That's a little bit closer. And then some of our events based on availability of spaces and stuff are sometimes held in Toronto. So we're a little bit everywhere, but I really try to keep a lot of our events central to Newmarket. That's where I started. And I think it's important to always go back there, to never forget where you started, where your roots were. And that's where my first event was. My first dinner was there. And so I always try to go back there as much as possible.
Yeah, and what's nice too about the conversation we're having is sort of opening up that, if there's people that are listening that don't live in the area, maybe it's like their call to create those events in their area. Because like when you said the depth, right? And I think this is what I'm seeing in so many of the rooms that I'm going into now. But I know for me personally has been like when I started my coaching journey like 20 years ago, it's like, as soon as like I entered that room, the space to just be you and to not like to let go of all of the roles that you play and all of the expectations that we put on ourselves. There's something so incredibly freeing about that. Like showing up in a space where you can just be you, whatever that may be. And maybe that you changes sometimes, right? From like event to event because of the space that you're in. But to give yourself permission and to know that you're in a space that feels safe enough for you to show up that way is incredibly powerful. And I think like the word safe is so key, right? For many of us, it's like, we need to know that this is a space where it's okay for me to that I don't have to pretend. I can take off that social mask and I can just be me. So I think it's so beautiful that you really listen to that. And the fact that it came to you through meditation, I think is so amazing because that's where we get a lot of downloads. I mean, we get downloads all the time, but yeah, for you to like really feel that connection there is amazing. Yeah.
That's really cool.
I love it. And you said like to be seen, heard, supported, loved, like that is again, like just where it's all at. So beautiful. And I know I was like so pulled towards your And I remember when you and I were having a chat, I'm like, the branding that you did around the We Experience, now that you and I have had conversations, I know how intentional that was. And it makes sense because you have a background.
Yeah.
But you did such a beautiful job curating it where I'm like, oh, I want to be there. Like this feels like elevated and warm at the same time, which is like a hard thing to pull.
It is. It really is a hard thing to pull because I want people to step, I want to say that I'm an curator of experiences. Like I'm not, I think there's a difference between an event and I think there's a difference between an experience. And so I don't want to say I'm an event planner because I'm not. I like to curate an experience in anything that I do, whether I teach a yoga class to like 20 people in my community or whether I host an event, for 50 plus women or a dinner for 20. It's all about the experience. It's all about walking in the door and being able to kind of relax your shoulders and take a breath and being like, I landed, I'm here. And to enjoy that, to be, distracted enough in the present that you don't feel inclined to be somewhere else. To see the beauty in that's around you. And a lot of our events are, like you had said, are curated. And, I do have a little bit of a background in social media. And I think I had that before because one of my businesses got me into social media because it was so curated. But the We Experience, everything that I have done from it from the very beginning up until now has been very intentional. Like I had mentioned to you before, is that, for the first year of the We Experience, as my face was actually never shown on the page. I think it was there for the first post I ever made so people knew. And I did like a collaboration post, but after that I was not visible on the page. I don't even think you could find me on the website. And I did it on purpose. I wanted women to kind of land on Instagram or land on my website and feel as if they were already a part of it. That they didn't feel like an outsider looking in, that they literally, when they clicked on our page, they walked in the door and they were there and they landed. And I wanted it to be that way. I didn't want it to be about me, and I didn't want myself to be a distraction to everything else, because I've been there, I've done that. I'm cool to be in the background. I'm cool to watch people experience. That's what I love most about events, is watching people walk into the space and looking around and, their shoulders relax, and then maybe seeing me and smiling, or maybe seeing a friend and smiling and giving a hug. Like, to me, that is so fulfilling. To do events like that.
Yeah. And it goes to your name, right? The We Experience, where it's like sort of the collective, and for people who are sort of like energetically sensitive, maybe if you're listening, you know what we mean. It's like when you feel energy to me, it's like an event it's the collective energy becomes its own sort of thing, right? That you can't, that's the part that you can't control before, because it's only going, like, it really truly depends on who's there. But it's always so beautiful to witness the unfolding of like people coming together and how it just makes people feel, which is so incredible. Now, I know, so the We Experience is sort of like what I saw, how I was connected to you. And I love just, again, the intention that you bring to creating these experiences. But then as you and I were having this chat, it was like your journey to the We Experience. So you said that sort of like came from that place of loneliness. But like the journey there, I would love for you, because there are so many different facets and different things that you've done and tried and still do today, because the We Experience is like a part of what you do. And when you and I were talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so refreshing. I love how you embrace all of the different facets of you and all of the things that you love. And you're not sort of like feeling the need to like be like, this is me and this is what I do. You're allowing yourself to like just spread your wings. So we'd love to learn more. Tell us more about that.
I will say before I start, I haven't always been that way. I think I don't want to say a long time. I say a brief moment. There was a brief moment. I want to say like maybe a week in there where I actually try not to hold on to things too long. where I actually was conflicted. And this was kind of at the time where I was transitioning out of my social media and going into the we experience. And I felt that I only could be the we experience because I was only social media for so long. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going into something else I'm only this one thing. And it was a conversation actually with somebody else where I said, I don't know, maybe I posted something in my stories where I was kind of like talking in a little bit of shame. And she goes, Portia, you're a multi-passionate entrepreneur. And I was like, you're right. I am. And in that moment, I owned it. I was like, you know what? Because always in the back of my mind was like, I don't want people to be like, what is Portia up to now? Like, here she goes again.
Yeah.
And because I've heard that be said to me about other people. And I was like, oh my gosh, are people saying that about me? And not that I should really care, but I like doing all of these things. I like where they all lead me, but I know that not everybody can see that. And so, you know, my first entrepreneurial journey started as a yoga teacher. It was probably 15 years ago. And yoga has been embedded in really everything that I do. That is, you know, why I want no cell phones at events. That's why I want presence over anything else. I believe that is a gift that we don't cherish enough of. And during that kind of transition between my social media business and the we experience, I had to kind of step back into presence. And so now it's like really like set in my bones. And so everything that I do, I want to be present and involved in. And so I started as a yoga teacher. I still do that to this day. I did take a little bit of a hiatus kind of in the middle. But I teach regularly at a local studio. I teach seniors as well, which has been amazing. Very challenging and eye-opening to say the least. You think you know, but you really don't. From there was the local yoga studio that I was working at was changing owners, and a lot of the classes that I had weren't necessarily secure for me at that point. At that point in time, I fell in love with spinning, and convinced my husband over drinks that it would be a great idea to open a spin studio in my basement. This was the Den. This is a business, honestly, that I go back to every single day. It is a business where I found equal balance of both, enjoying what I do, community, offline, being present. It was a business that I still wish I could have that business model now. And I'm getting to it. But I opened the Den, and that honestly was a gift. That was honestly where my social media started. I knew I needed a social media presence. I've always, you know, if anybody has been following me from the very beginning knows that my love is black and white. Every business that I have done has always been black and white. It just changes and adapts as I go. And that's where kind of everything kind of was a jumping off point. So that's when I realized that I had a talent in social media and web design. I ended up, you know, maybe 2 years into the Den, I went and took a course, thought maybe I'll do this on the side. This is when, you know, things were becoming a little bit more on Instagram. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'm just going to get my foot in the door. This is really cool. Went all in for that. I was one of the businesses that I didn't know a lot of. At the time, I have to say, I didn't know a lot about any of these things. I just kind of learn as I go, jump in and learn as I get there. And, but this one was a really hard one. This is where I had to show up online, face to camera. Never did that before. I wasn't much of an online person before. So it was very new. It was very uncomfortable. And I did that for about 3 years. And that kind of ruined me a little bit, to be honest. That jaded me. That jaded my heart. And I still have a very love-hate relationship with social media. And, you know, my mantra right now is I'm only online so I can be offline. That is the goal.
I love that. I'm only online so I can be offline. I'm writing it down. So when you say like the jaded, that you felt jaded, like, can you speak a little bit more to that? Like what shifted in you that made you feel like, okay, this is no longer working?
I lost myself. I think I was so hung up on external validation. I lost myself in a variety of different ways. I had some really hard clients in my business, and I wasn't necessarily strong enough to kind of manage them. Some of them were bullies, and I'm not good with a bully. So I shrink, I dig a hole, and I keep digging it. And then I try to figure out how to get out of it, and then I can't get out of it. So my boundaries were lost. That was a huge one. There was no separation of online and offline. Everything was online all the time. I was constantly bombarded by clients, could never get the boundaries set back in place. I was deteriorating. My mental health was deteriorating. On the outside, it looked perfect and grand. On the inside, I was just struggling. I was never as unhappy as I was in those times. And it didn't start like that. Honestly, it was probably the last 6 months that really hit home for me. And that was in a combination of loneliness, being online all the time, being in Zoom calls all the time, having to show up every single day on social media, trying to put on this facade, this face. My hair had to be done, my makeup had to be on, I had to have the nice clothes on, and it was hard to keep up with. And it really made me jaded. It really made me not want to be a part of it. It really wanted me to delete everything, go get a regular job. I didn't care where I worked. If I worked at Walmart as a cashier, as long as I didn't have to be online, I was content. So I really had to take a break. I really had to step back and take a large step back and look at me and what I needed. Thankfully, a lot of the universe listened because I didn't have the courage to let go of a lot of these clients. It heard my cries for help. And a lot of these people fell off naturally within like a 6-month period. I ended up still working with one client that I absolutely loved. And we did that for quite a while. But I needed space. I, hit a number in my income that I thought was going to bring me some fulfillment, and it didn't. And that was really eye-opening. That was a hard pill to swallow. I really thought that I was going to feel something, feel accomplished, maybe feel a form of success in some way. And I didn't. And that was a good aha moment for me, to be reminded that, a lot of the things that I had done in the past weren't necessarily bringing abundance of like pockets, wads of money, but it was bringing me abundance in so many other areas of my life. And I was just misled in a way. I misled myself. And I think a little bit of the things that I watched on social media misled me. I think there was a lot of delusion for myself that I couldn't necessarily disconnect the idea that some of these things were fake. Like some of these things were really a facade in a way. And it was part of the brand. It was part of what they were selling. And it was hard for me to see the human. And so really stepping back was good. And that's what led me to the We experience. I started meditating. Basically, I went through full adrenal fatigue. I couldn't get up in the morning. I couldn't walk around my block. I was out of breath. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stay still. I couldn't do anything. Anything that I was doing before was impossible. And I was angry and sad and all of the emotions, because I was like, how did I get myself here? I've never been here before. How do I get myself out of here? And that was a long road. And I'm still battling that road. And meditation really brought me back to myself. Finding stillness, finding presence was so important. It led me to the We experience. And it led me to the things that I'm, doing alongside the We experience, which is making sourdough and really fulfilling that dream of being offline and being with community without having to be attached to my phone. And that's really like my bakery in the woods. I feel like if I just keep saying it, it's going to happen.
I think you definitely are manifesting it. And now it's like, yes, like how we connected was just like this conversation, I think is so important to have, because we are living in a really like a fake reality so much of the time, right? Where it's like all of these making so many assumptions around how people like that, the image that we're seeing reflects the actual reality of the person. And when you start to realize that it doesn't, that it really is just that, is just a good branding, basically. But then also sort of, and everyone is wired differently, but for you to really recognize that this is not aligned. And I mean, in some ways it's like your body sort of gave you a gift in that it gave you no choice, but to like come out, I mean, I would assume just with all of the work and just knowing you too, you're like someone who's very sensitive, and like the body was just like, this ain't gonna work. Like this is not like you had no choice, but still it's not easy. Like it's so like it really pulls us in this world for business owners. And maybe if you're listening and you're not a business owner, it might feel a little different, but I'm feeling like for the I don't know, I'm seeing people, everyone seems to be pulled into that whole world in some way.
Yeah, I think so. And I think even if you're not, like I was talking to my girlfriend and she just had a baby. And so she's not really into the social media world. She doesn't have a business online, but she likes to scroll through TikTok, and she finds it hard to kind of see a little bit of comparison and looking at other people highlight reel and being like, oh, why isn't my life like that? Why isn't my relationship like that after having a baby? Like, and so that's hard. I think it affects everybody. And even if we still have, like, this is why people will send me reels and things on Instagram. And I'm like, I don't scroll on Instagram. I can't, because it literally makes me feel so bad about myself. It makes me feel like I should be doing more. I see Instagram as a business, as an app of business, not as an app of entertainment. And so I go to TikTok, to be honest, to be entertained, because you can easily sift through some of the noise and you can find different people, and it's a little bit more authentic. Like, people are literally just showing up, like, there's clothes scattered everywhere and they're like half dressed, hair's half up, half down, makeup's down their face. And they're just like, hey, I want to tell you this story that happened to me earlier today. And you're like, okay, tell me. But on Instagram, it's someone in a full face of makeup. And so it's sometimes it's hard to relate or even disconnect a little bit from that. So, you know, and I think really that is the jadedness of me and Instagram. Like, I had to kind of put that boundary up and be like, it's a business app. This is for business. This isn't for entertainment.
Yeah, it's sort of like the create versus consuming, right?
Yes.
Like, if you're going and you're, you know, using it as a creator and it's an opportunity. I mean, we've connected on Instagram, and I've like met so many incredible women, and I do still, for me, connect with the platform. However, it's like this very, like, the idea of the boundaries is so important. And I can feel myself sometimes slipping, where it's like, okay, this feels good and this doesn't feel good. Yeah. And that area in between is so, you can so easily get pulled in. And it really requires that constant, is this feeling good? Is this supporting me? Did I just lose like, it's crazy how you can lose an hour of your life.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
I'll be like, it's 8:00, and then like you look, it's like, what? It's 9:00. What just happened?
I know. I'm always like 5 more minutes, and I'm like, what? I only got through 2 videos in 5 minutes. No. It should be like 5 more videos.
I know.
I get that. I know that feeling.
Yeah. No, it's so thank you for like bringing that up, because I think, you know, and like anything in life, we learn through, like, it's through contrast, right? Yeah. So having the experience of like, this no longer works for you again, like, you're in a position where your boundaries are even stronger and clearer because maybe it really didn't feel good. And so that's how we sort of come back into balance, right? And now recognizing that where you're at now is honoring like who you're being, and that means some of this and some of that, and embracing all of it, which is the whole multi-passionate thing. I mean, that's exactly, it was such a big aha. I spoke about it in one of my podcast episodes, because it was like, there's so much judgment before around, like, almost like feeling like, am I just flaky? Like, people are going to feel like, oh, she doesn't know who she is, so she's just all over. But when you can just embrace, and isn't that what it's all about? Yeah.
And I feel like, I know for myself, as like speaking on the multi-passionate, is, you know, when I started making sourdough as a hobby, like I called it my hobby job 2 years ago. And this year was the year I decided to take it seriously. And I always just thought people thought I was a bit nuts for like picking up this thing. I don't even bake. Like, it was just so bizarre. And then once I started taking it seriously and started putting out there, like, I'm taking this seriously, people are like, finally. Like, we've been watching you for 2 years. Like, finally, Portia, about time. And I was like, oh, I thought the reaction was going to be different.
Interesting.
I thought, here we go again. Here she goes again. Another business, another something. She's tired of the we experience. She's tired of this. Oh, here she goes. And it was shocking, like, how many people were like, even the guy I pick up the flour from, he's like, okay, Portia, finally, like, all right. And I was like, oh, like, I didn't know everybody was waiting. I was just, I was expecting for the eye roll in the background or something like that. But it was shocking, and it was very eye-opening for me to be like, okay, clearly I'm putting judgment on myself where no one else really is.
Yeah, because I mean, most people want good for us, right?
Yeah.
The people that matter anyways do.
Yeah.
And so when you can find something, like, to me, what I love about, so this has been the interesting conversation that I've had with some people too, is like some friends of mine where it's like, okay, so when we talk about setting these limits with social media, and I think most people can agree that there's too much screen time, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a few people out there that don't, but for the majority of people, screen time is a thing, whether it's like you're watching Netflix or you're on your phone scrolling, or I know for me it's working too. So I've got my laptop, and then you can just get like, oh, you're on Canva, and all of a sudden, again, you spent like 2 hours like creating graphics and posts, and like it's crazy how you can really like go into that path. But then the question becomes, if you really are setting boundaries, what do you do with your time?
I know.
And it sounds like so crazy, but I'm like, okay, if I'm not watching TV, if I'm not on my phone, and if I'm not allowed to work,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Yeah. You
So,
find a hobby.
I'm like, maybe I need to start baking.
You need a hobby. That's what your hobbies are for.
Yes.
And that was
it's
a
like
huge
we've
thing.
lost the art of like
Doing nothing.
doing nothing. Like we really truly have it. I'm a meditation teacher. That's what I teach people. I get it. And it's like, okay, so now I'll color. I have, I love to write and journal. But again, I have to watch, because some things, if I'm reading and I'm reading things that are like, to me, the challenge would be reading a book that has nothing to do with the work I'm doing now.
Yeah. I was just going to say that.
Yes, like reading the novels, which I used to read before, but now I don't do as much.
Hobbies, honestly, during that transitional period, hobbies is what saved me. People always ask me, like, how do I get a hobby, Portia? Because I was like, I just found a hobby. My hobby started with puzzling. I bought a puzzle for my husband and my family for Christmas as a family gift for all of us to do over Christmas break. I ended up doing the entire puzzle. I think my daughter stepped in like the last 30 puzzle pieces and said, I helped. And I said, no, you didn't. But that's where my love of puzzling kind of came. I don't do it as much as I should, just because I bake, and now my time is filled with other things that kind of fulfill me. But it was my first hobby, and it was my first introduction to a hobby. Because like you had said, once you start restricting all of this time, you then have all this time back, and you're like, well, I don't want to work out. I already went for 2 walks today, and I know I'm not allowed on my phone, but staring at the wall does not feel fun. And it's cold outside because it could be winter. Like you could be experiencing all 4 seasons. So you can't sit out in the sun or lounge by a pool or anything like that. So I found a hobby. And so I started with puzzling. I loved it because it was one of those hobbies that kept your hands busy. So I always felt like I was accomplishing something. I could do it in silence. So if I wanted to make it a meditative practice, I could do it in silence and be alone with my thoughts. If I wanted still a bit of a distraction, I could put on a podcast, or I could put on some music to kind of help me. And it was something that I could literally walk by. It'd be on my dining room table, and I could just pick up a piece and put it in and be like, I just did something today. Like just that instant gratification for yourself. And typically it would pull you in. Now I feel like my puzzling has led to books. I read a lot of romance. I never read before. And last year, I think I read over like 50 something books in 1 year, going from reading 0 to like, and I love it. I don't watch TV
You have to share
anymore.
some of your favorite authors with me then.
Yeah, I'll show you off screen. These are like real
If they're
romancy.
steamy.
They're steamy. Somewhere in between. So we got to start somewhere. I started soft and then moved into the steamy. But it was, you know what? People kind of giggle at the romance novels. The romance novels really helped my relationship with my husband.
Yeah.
It gave a different perspective. It allowed me to escape. outside of, my everyday without turning on the TV, without feeling bogged down. You can't really do anything else when you're reading. You only can read. You can't scroll on your phone. You can't multitask. It is only one thing. And I love it. I read all the time, and I know I'm so intuitive with myself, or, I can self-aware that I know when I'm out of balance. And so when I crave the television, when I crave TikTok, I know I'm out of balance. I know that I'm looking for a quick dopamine hit. I know I'm looking for a quick escape. And I know when I go to those things, I'm still very distracted. I'm still very itchy, is what I call it. My mind is itchy. My body's itchy. It's never settled. And that's when I know I'm like, okay, I need to go find a really good book that can just suck me in and I won't feel the need to be pulled out. And so I love reading now. And I think my baking is another kind of hobby escape in a way, where it's something that once again, I only can do the one thing. I can't be on my phone and bake. I only can really listen to music. I can't even watch TV. It's still too distracting. I'll mess up somewhere. I'll forget something sometimes. So, I really have to be present with that. And I think once we start small, especially when those, like, if you have a 2-hour window of where you have nothing to do, you're not allowed scrolling, and you're like, dinner's done and it's before bed. It's a great place to kind of dabble, and it kind of gets you comfortable with being still with yourself. And then I feel like that leads into like a meditation practice or these different things, because you're still relatively distracted, I guess, in a way, where you don't fully have to be present with your thoughts, and you can kind of drift in and out of them without, being on a cushion on the floor and then being like, I only can do this.
Oh, I love that. And it's also like when you going back to like the hobbies too, it's like the letting yourself be creative and trying new things. Like I think is so important. Like I'm sure if somebody would have said that you'd be doing sourdough baking, like, I don't know, a number of years ago, you would have been like, I don't think so. No. But it was just you being like, oh, I'm going to try something new. And then you discover this passion that you have.
Yeah, it was crazy. I know. I just had a conversation with my mom yesterday. I was trying to like figure it all out. It's very overwhelming right now. And I just said, I never thought I would be a baker. And my mom goes, baking's in your blood, Portia. And I was like, oh, is it? I was like, I never thought of that. My mom is a strong baker. My grandmother's a strong baker. Of course it's in my blood. My uncles, like everybody has this knack of baking. And I was like, oh, but I would never have thought that. And I still don't think that. Like, you'll hear me on my stories. I'm like, I'm not a baker. This is what I made. People are like, Portia, stop saying that. Yeah. But it's nice. It's nice to try new things. I think it's fun to challenge yourself. I love challenging myself, just these subtle little challenges. That's how I started meditating again. I wanted to challenge myself to 30 days. I love like seeing what I am capable of doing. And some of these challenges are really small, like every single day of gratitude, or it could be, find something that's beautiful every single day that you might not necessarily see the day before. And so I love just challenging myself, because it just kind of leads down a different path, and then it leads to other things. And then you find courage and strength to try new things, do things alone, be alone with yourself, be comfortable with yourself. But yeah, like I love learning new things, and I love being challenged. And I love when I put the challenge on myself. I don't like when other people be like, Portia, I challenge you to do this. I'm like, no, stop. Because then I get really competitive. The bad side comes out. But I like to just silently do it. And I think there's something nice. There's not a gold star at the end of the day. It's not like I did it or I didn't. It's not like closing the rings on your watch. Like, it's just something for yourself. No one else knows about it. Yeah. It's just for you. It's not a competition. It's not for validation. It's literally just to be like, I'm doing this for myself every single day.
I love this. No, I feel very inspired by it, because it's again, like when we can, it's creating space and allowing yourself to, we can get like really ingrained in doing things in a certain way. And I know that for me personally, the work that I'm doing feels like really, I'm very passionate about it and I love it and I can lose myself in it, but I'm also aware of there's like that point where it's like, it's fueling me and then all of a sudden it starts to drain me. And that's when I know I've gone too far. And really being mindful and incorporating and trying new things, like you need to have the space to be open to that. So I love that. I don't do well with puzzles, so I'm trying to think where I'm going to start.
Where are you going to go?
Start somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe we need people to share their ideas too, but that's amazing. And like, speaking of time, I know that another part of the conversation that, where you and I have really connected with is we both had our kids at a fairly young age, like, early 20s, which means that our kids are grown and we're still young and still sort of have all this energy and desire to do new things. So your daughter is close to graduating.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling? What's going through your mind? How are you like seeing this next chapter, which I know a lot of people resist. So
Well, I am not resisting. I'll just say that right now. I'm welcoming it with open arms. And people are like, I was doing a yoga class and the other day and I had said exactly what you had said. My daughter is 17. She'll be 18 in August. She's going on to her next chapter in life, really, harnessing independence on both sides, like independence for myself, independence for her, and not like independence like, oh, I can just leave my house and get my car and go somewhere, like true independence. Like anybody who's listening that's a mother knows that half of your brain is a filing system for your children and what they are doing and what they are not doing and what you still need to do for them and the appointments that you need to make. And I am like, so open to like that side of my brain opening up, like that filing system to like shrink into a folder and to have that space back for myself and finding myself as an individual outside of that. And like I'm so excited. And this is why, things are kind of changing in my life. And I always had said to my husband, we live in a subdivision home, or my husband and I have always said to each other, we live in a subdivision home. My daughter's an only child. And we moved to this house for a reason, for a purpose. It was for her to be in the community, to be able to walk to everything, ride her bike to things, friends on the street. Like this house was here for a purpose. But once she was done high school, there's no purpose for this house anymore. I have no reason to live here. And I don't think it really hit me until the beginning of this year. So not that long ago, where I was like, whoa, I don't need to be in this house anymore after June. Like I can leave. And so this really put some like fire under my ass to be like, okay, Portia, what's the next step? Where are we going from here? What do you need to do now to see this future through? And that's why I'm taking my baking business seriously. Like I said before, I'm working hard to be online so I can relax offline. And I want to be in the middle of nowhere. I want to have my business on my property. I want to be able to live more offline than online. I want to be a part of my community. I want to serve my community. And, it kind of hit me hard and fast, I guess, more or less. And I'm really excited. I'm not resisting, I'm excited, and I'm equally excited for her. I'm equally excited for her to experience her life. Like you had said, we're both young enough to, still do our own thing, but still very much be there for them at the same time. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited for her next adventure and what that looks like. Like, she's been my best pal for 17 years. And I'm like, we're ready to like really cut the cord now and see each other as individuals, as adults, not just mother and daughter.
Yeah, I just found it like when we were having that conversation, and it's just like it's beautiful, it's refreshing to because there's like this narrative around kids leaving, and I'm sure like you share that. I mean, it's always complex, right? It comes with like different things, but it's nice to like share a different narrative sometimes because it's like if that's not your narrative of like being upset, then you almost feel guilty, or like you're just
Yes.
like, maybe I shouldn't say that because it means I'm a bad mother. When it's like, really, no, truly,
Yeah.
and you get to be a great mom and love your child and be excited about your next chapter. And to me, that's also a gift that you give your children, because then it's like, oh, she's okay. I can do my thing because I know she's okay. My mom's okay, right? Like,
Yeah.
so from her perspective too. So I'm like, oh, it's nice to have, again, it's not that one way is right and the other way is wrong, and we all like have our own feelings around them, around that next phase of our parenting chapter, and we're allowed to feel exactly how we're feeling. And it's nice to open up to different stories and to celebrate wherever, you know,
Wherever we
we
are.
are. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like for myself, I dedicated the last 17 years to my daughter. Like I was a stay-at-home mother first, an entrepreneur second, Portia second. So I feel like I had my daughter at 20. I feel like I deserve this. I feel
Yeah.
like I've worked really, really hard. I grew up really, really fast. I did all of the things and more. And, I spent my first 10 years of being a mother trying to prove that I was a good mother. And I feel like I deserve to have just Portia.
Yeah.
It's not like someone's like, well, they're never really going to go away. And I'm like, yeah, they are. She's been told. But like, not really. But I know what they're saying. But like,
Yeah.
it's nice to be like, this is where we're both going. Our paths are together, and we're going to not necessarily separate, but we're going to start walking at our own pace separately.
Yeah.
And I'll pick you up when you're falling behind, and you pick me up when I'm falling behind. But, I want you to go and figure out life. I want you to figure out life lessons. I want you to find independence. I want you to mess up, make mistakes, do bad things, and learn from those things, and not feel like you need to be, held under my wing. I don't want to protect you anymore. I want to push you off the cliff like the mom bird does to her poor babies and fly away. Like I want that for you. And I also deserve as an individual to be free too, in some sort of capacity, in one way or another. Like, not that I'm washing my hands clean of being a mother. Obviously, you can never do that.
No,
but
no. Yeah.
my title is changing, and I want to be Portia first, mother second, and I'm ready for that.
And, it's interesting because it like opens up. I know that part of the meditation training that, I did and will sometimes like guide is in like, the process of like, I am first, last name, and then you release the last name, I am first name, then you release the first name, and then it's just like being in the I am. And it's like, we've always been us before.
Yeah.
Right. But that role is one. And I mean, obviously, when you're a parent, it's part of your purpose, and it's part of why you're here. And so all of it is a part of your journey for sure. But it's interesting to be like, it's not like a new person. It's just like a coming back. Like when we talk about that process of coming back and remembering, like, who am I outside of that role? And it's a fun sort of like or it can be a really interesting, fun, and in with couples too, because I know like my husband and I, we went through years where like it just feels like you're in some ways co-parenting, like side by side, but it's like, we always had like one was at figure skating with one, the other one was at hockey, and then you sort of meet, and then but you're just so busy. It was a grind. And then all of a sudden you have all this time together. Like it really is like a rediscovering of yourself. And then in relationships, it can also be that if, you happen to be in that relationship, but it's a fun, interesting time.
And I'm happy you brought up the relationship, because that is something that I think I'm also really looking forward to, because my husband and I didn't know each other very long before we got pregnant and kind of got tossed in this whole parenthood stuff. And so it's nice, like, to, my husband's 9 years older than me, so he kind of watched me grow up more or less, in a way. And it's kind of nice to kind of, like you had said, meet back together again. And you're kind of two very different people, because, the communication is not as deep as what it used to be when it was just two. And it's like it's like falling in love all over again. And I know I feel that in my relationship because I'm far more confident now. I feel like I can share my feelings more freely. Like our relationship we've been married for 15 years. Like it has had its ebbs and its flows. And it's nice to have that space in your mind and your heart to reconnect with your partner. I think it's so beautiful. And I am really looking forward to like our time together.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, this is like, I could keep going. I was like looking at the time. I just absolutely love you, Portia. Thank you so much for being here and just sharing. Like, to me, it's like when you have these like authentic, true, real, deep conversations, it just means everything. It's so nice to be in the spaces with women where you just feel like you can feel seen, loved, heard, accepted.
Yes.
Now, I love to end the podcast, and I didn't tell you this ahead of time, actually, but what does spirituality mean to you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I think the immediate thing that I thought of was presence. I think I brought that up so much throughout the podcast, and I think in my whole spiritual journey, of everything that I've been through, it really brought me presence, and it brought me, or it allowed me to kind of see the world in a different way, in a nice way. It allowed me, to see, the bees around the flowers, and, when my dog's running at me, his ears flapping, and the sounds that my chickens make when they're happy, and the sounds that they make when they're sad. And, it allows me to see the world in such a beautiful light. And I think that is spirituality to me. I think it really is being present.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I really feel with you, like the word that comes a lot is like intentionality. Like you really are very intentional with how you choose to live, what you choose to do, what you say yes to, what you say no to. And I know it's ebbed and flows and you've learned different, but isn't that what life is, right? We that's how we learn. So I have just a lot of appreciation for that. I love how intentional you are with being present and creating an environment in your life that supports that presence. So thank you for being here with us. And we are going to share all sorts of information in terms of like where people can find you, but where is the best place? We're going to have everything in the show notes, but where's the best place for people to find you? If you say Instagram, now it's going to be a tough one.
I was going to say Instagram. You can find me on Instagram, the business app.
Yes.
But you can find me in two places, and we're going to share that there. So if you want to see the side of the we experience, the different side of me, you can find me at the.we.experience. And then if you want to see the personal side of Portia, you can follow me at Chambers_Portia.
Wonderful. Thank you again for being here. And I do want to remind you that you are spiritually wired for love, for success, for abundance, for presence. So I will see you next time. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Spiritually Wired. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and leave a review. It really makes a big difference for the podcast. And if you're ready to dive deeper and join a soul-led community, come be a part of the Spiritually Wired membership. With weekly life lessons and a rich library of recorded classes, it's designed to support you every step of the way on your spiritual journey. We currently have a special offer where you can receive your first month for half the price. You can find a link in the show notes or come check it out at ReneeWalkerWellness.com. Until next time, remember to take some deep breaths. Remember that you are spiritually wired.